This year's drought throughout the United States is already the worst in over half a century, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. While some parts of Minnesota seem to be doing well, others have not been so lucky. Lacey Monteleone spoke with one farmer in Clearwater County about the state of his crops and livestock, and she joins us live in the studio with more. Lacey?
Dennis, Keith Gephardt told me today that being a farmer is a lot like being a gambler. And by just looking at the effects of this year's drought, it's not a good time to be gambling. In Keith Gephardt's 13 years of farming, this is one of the worst droughts he has ever seen.
I always say that even in a good year, we've got to get if we don't have any rain within 10 days, you can really see a difference.
That lack of rain affects every aspect of Gephardt's farm. One of the most obvious areas hit hard is his alfalfa field.
Last year this field had over 250 bales on it. This year it had 110.
Gephardt says these crops are pretty much finished growing. And for Gephardt, who uses these fields to feed his cows, that's a problem.
I noticed the calves are smaller, the cows are thinner. We're trying to move them around as best we can.
The cows in this pasture have already eaten so much grass and there's been no regrowth that they're already reaching through this fence to eat the grass on the other side.
And I have a pasture rotation system, and we'd move them over a series of 5 weeks. By the time we went back to the first paddock again, the grass would be regrown. It's not. So now when I get down to my 5 weeks, where am I going to put them?
If things do not change, he may have to start selling some of his livestock.
I spent the last 12 years building this herd the way it is with these genetics through a lot of artificial insemination, through a lot of embryo transplants, things like that. So when I start to sell those animals, they're difficult to replace.
Unfortunately, Gephardt's situation is not unique.
It's very spotty throughout the state, but many areas of the state are extremely dry, and when we've coupled that with the high temperatures over the last several weeks, it's created really a dire situation throughout much of northwest Minnesota.
The drought will definitely have an economic impact on the region as well.
We're going to have hay shortages. Farmers are being forced to sell livestock just because there's not enough feeds.
But for Gephardt, there is little that can be done except to keep hoping for some rain.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping for the best, but it just doesn't look good.
Gephardt says a real problem will be if he has to start feeding his cattle hay in September rather than in November. The price of hay will only go up with so many other farmers in need of it, and for farmers who run out of hay next spring, they may be out of luck.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.